Okay.
Hi, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is a review of a very old movie called ZARDOZ. I saw it first 35 years ago with a good friend. His name was Mark. We'd gone directly just after work. Unfortunately, it was the worst dollar spent in the world. In fact, I can say if we had to spend $1 for it today, it would be a waste. We thought it was going to be a good movie, one being that it had Sean Connery. How bad can a movie with Sean Connery be? Let me tell you. First of all, he came out in diapers and big boots, and this big head comes flying through the air. ZARDOZ, 1974, written, directed, and produced by a gentleman named John Boorman. It's kind of appropriate because the movie was boring, and to sit through it again after 35 years didn't improve it in and of the least. It was just absolutely awful. The premise, God, no one knows what the premise is, no one knows the plot is. This head comes flying through the air, lands. There's a bunch of people, it's in the future, apparently an apocalyptic future. This head lands and starts talking to people, saying, "I am ZARDOZ," and gives them the saying that guns are good and the penis is evil. So right away it starts off, well, I like the gun part, but the other part I don't like too much. So, anyway, he talks, and people feed him grain, and he spews out guns. Lots of guns. Rifles just keep shooting and shooting it out of his mouth. And these people go about, and he says, what you need to do is to go out and kill. So it's kind of, I'm starting to think at this point, being now 35 years older, that this is anti-biblical, where the Bible says to go out and reproduce. This thing says to go out and kill. Well, no, but that's too easy. So we have Zed, who's played by Sean Connery. I don't know how much they paid him to do the movie. I don't know if he did it for free. I don't know if they bribed him. I can see why he retired if he saw this movie again. Anyway, so the movie goes on, and they have, as I said, Sean Connery is sitting in diapers and like a red thing, and he has his gun. He has a horse. It's in the 24th century, roughly. Seems to be there was radioactivity that did away with the earth, but then later on in the movie you see a house in England that looks like a country home, just like a country home in England with the wood bars on the outside and the kind of stucco or the mud, and they blow it up. Why? We don't know. They tell you to kill people. Why? We also don't know that. They do promise, and they do have some socially redeeming value. Socially redeeming value for those of you that aren't military or Navy, or particularly submarine people. Socially redeeming value is that it contains women that are naked. Well, yeah, it did, but they weren't even cute. And seeing them 40 years later, I still wasn't impressed. That really not being the theme of the story. The whole theme of the story is this: is just as the thing ends. Oh, and Sean Connery does do one thing that's kind of funny that I really enjoyed, as he does, or as he did in his James Bond movies right at the beginning. He would come up, and as you hear the James Bond theme, and you see all the credits and all the things, the next thing you see is him point the gun at the screen and kabam. Well, he does the same thing in this one, and he points the gun and he shoots at you. Basically, what it is that towards the end, they come up and they tell him that this movie, what ZARDOZ is the Wizard of Oz. What this has to do with anything has absolutely nothing to do with anything of the Wizard of Oz, just that somebody found the book, and all that was left were the words Zard and Oz. So they based their society apparently on Frank Baum's book, but no, you can't say that because I've read all of his books and it has absolutely nothing to do with what was written here. It says, I have seen the future and it does not work. Let me tell you what, I have seen this movie and it also does not work. Review number 1. I would review and I would say, please do not see this. Even the popcorn was bad. If the popcorn is good, once seeing the movie, the popcorn will be bad because it'll rot in your hands and in your arms. It's bad, it's awful, and it has a cult following. You can actually find this thing and people can look at it and say, you know, this is the worst movie on earth. Sean Connery apparently was not too proud of it while doing it. I remember some interviews a few years back where they talked about that. He said he did it basically as a favor to John Borman. Borman is right. The movie was boring. The plot was boring. The only thing that was of any value whatsoever was the end. Except for the beginning, when there's a head that comes popping out, and the special effects were spectacular. They were done with a Sharpie, it looked like. Just they drew in a mustache, and they drew in a little goatee, and his head just kind of bounced around with a red, looked like a nun, a guy dressed like a nun, without a body, a mustache that's penciled in Raleigh finger style, and a goatee, and he talks about stuff that makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. Moral of the story, don't go see the movie. Save your dollar. If it costs more than $1 to go see these days, don't see it. If you see it on YouTube, I would cancel YouTube at that point. It's not a good movie, never has been, never will be. As I said before, I've seen the movie, and the movie does not work. Thank you very much. Okay, turn it off.
Oh, I turn it off. Might get TV in the background.